104.7 The Cave. KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
Yeah, here we are on at least a little bit less of a muggy June day, our last day in June, Ned, right?
Final day, 1st of July tomorrow, and then the 4th of July coming up Thursday.
Are you going to be in the parade again this year?
We'll be.
In Marshfield?
Going to give it a try, yes. Mm-hmm.
Are you the Grand Marshal again?
No. Just representing the honor flight, but yeah, we'll do that. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Well, if you're up in Marshfield, checking out the parade, look for Ned and wave hi. Say hey.
We're
hey,
the
Ned.
lead group. We
Give him
started
a bottle
off.
of water. He'll need it.
Oh, I need more than that.
Throw candy at him. He likes candy. How about that?
Actually, as the leaders of the parade, however, the honor flight is the one doing the throwing of the candy, so we'd have to stop and pick it up.
Throw it back.
No, can't bend over to get it.
This isn't Wrigley Field. Stop it.
I'm Joe Westen. That's Ned Reynolds. Josh Roberts with us. Alex Scott is up in St. Louis watching the Cardinals play the Reds this afternoon. So how are you guys? Are you ready for 4th of July?
Oh, absolutely. This was always, as a kid, one of my favorite holidays. This is the ones, along with Christmas, of course, and the others, where you don't sleep the night before in anticipation of what's going to happen. Fireworks especially, but when you're a kid, there are a lot of exciting things going on, and yeah, that's it. It carries over into adulthood and into extra adulthood.
So you're a Philly native.
Uh-huh.
What was 4th of July like in Philadelphia as a kid?
Yeah, it wasn't in Philly. I was in the South Jersey suburbs.
Okay.
And with the town close enough, 10 miles away, come on, the fireworks, that was a really, really big deal. Now the fireworks are much more common, have them every Friday night at a Springfield Cardinals game, so they do kind of permeate the atmosphere a little bit, but in regards to the 4th of July, that was really the only time that you saw them. We went down to our city park, which was on a small creek, and probably had, for our small town, maybe 5,000 to 6,000 people there. So it was a big deal.
What's your favorite 4th of July memory, Josh?
Ooh, I don't know. I've got so many. My dad loved the 4th of July, so we used to always have a bunch of people out to our house because we lived out in the country back then, and there were just hay fields behind us or cattle fields, and so we could see the fireworks from Hickory Hills Country Club from our house. So everybody would sit in lawn chairs out there, and we'd shoot off fireworks ourselves and have homemade ice cream and all kinds of grilled food and everything.
Homemade ice cream.
Homemade. It's hard to beat homemade ice cream.
Tradition of the holiday. Hey, lest we forget, though, the late lamented, and I mean that in all seriousness because you do lament the holiday, Firefall. Here in town.
Oh, yeah,
it was
that was a great time.
Really,
I wish that they would bring that back. I do
too.
It was such a cool event. I'll shortly tell you this funny story. My brother-in-law was the shop teacher down in Nixa, Mr. Wood, the one-eyed shop teacher, and he loved 4th of July, and he constructed this thing one year where he had all this, it was all wood, and he attached all the fireworks to it so that he could go through and just light them, and they would go off and make a big fireworks display.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, he put it together upside down, so all the fireworks shot right into the ground. But I miss Steve, and a funny story about him. Anyway, we talk about sports. That's what we do, and I say this often, Ned. One of the things that really sucks about working in classic rock is you spend a lot of time talking about people that are dead. Last week, Willie Mays. This week, Orlando Cepeda died.
This is a real shame, too.
Yeah.
It really is. Cepeda, we took into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame because he was with the Cardinals and was with the Kansas City Royals to end his career. So he qualified, and he was here, I'm going to say it was about 7-8 years ago that we took him in. He was a gentleman, very gracious, and I saw him play. I witnessed many of his games with the San Francisco Giants. He is a guy who had just enormous power. His nickname was Paruchin, which is baby bull.
Oh, wow.
in Puerto Rico. His dad was the big bull, Parucho, and they were all just great players. Yeah, I'm just so very sorry. And Willie Mays, of course, was my personal favorite ball player. Best one I ever witnessed watching. Saw him play with the New York Giants a couple of times, but mostly with San Francisco. And there was nobody better. Nobody. The guy could do it all. A four-tool athlete who was just very special.
Yep. So these guys are aging and passing away, so it seems like we're talking about it at least every other week somebody that's not with us anymore, a major name that we know in sports history.
And that gives you an idea, Joe, about how old we are, because when it starts to resonate with you to that point, you know, oh my gosh, these are guys from my boyhood. What is happening? And the same thing will happen to today's generation about 40 or 50 years from now.
You know, I'm always doing the math really quickly. How old was he when he died? How much time do I have left to kind of think? Sort of. Anyway, we are ostensibly a Chiefs show. We talk a lot about the Kansas City Chiefs because we're your home for the Kansas City Chiefs in Southwest Missouri. And we have our Chiefs Happy Hour that's coming up on July 22nd. Tickets are available online at 1047thecave.com. Here's what you can expect. First of all, Ned Reynolds will be there. That's worth the price of admission.
Hardly.
No, seriously, having a conversation with you is worth the price of admission. Mitch Holthus was there, and correct me if I'm wrong. Did you see the induction yesterday for Bo Jackson into the Royals Hall of Fame?
I saw that he was inducted. I did not see the ceremony.
I think Mitch Holthus caught the pitch from him. It looked like Mitch, but I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know why that would have been the case.
I don't know, but it did look like it was Mitch. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it was George Brad or somebody, but it looked like Mitch to me. Anyway, Mitch Holthus will be here. Danon Hughes will be here, former Chiefs wide receiver. We're giving away a Frank Clark autographed jersey. There'll be food. There'll be drinks. The governor will probably show up at some point.
I don't think he's going to be.
He's not going to be there this year?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Ned's in touch with the governor. That's how big this guy is. We have to kind of, he's got his own people here telling us, no, the governor won't be here. Anyway, it's a fun time, and we hope to see all of you out there to get in the mood for Kansas City Chiefs football, which is really just around the corner. August will be the start of preseason football.
Now, Joe, you haven't told everybody where it's going to be.
It's at the Dive on Patton Street, which is this really cool bar that is just off the square downtown Springfield. It's easy to find, and they have great food. They have great drinks, and the people there last year were absolutely extraordinary to us. They were fantastic folks, and we had a great time, so we're having it back there again this year.
Now, the Chiefs Happy Hour, folks, is unique unto itself in that consists of what Joe told you about, a good camaraderie with everybody. But the gist of what we do is interview both Mitch, which that's a oxymoron because it is not an interview at all. Once he takes over, he's it.
Yeah. Hey, Mitch, how you doing? And 20 minutes later.
Right.
And
then Danon Hughes, who is nothing short of outstanding as a broadcaster.
Yes. This was last year was the first year. I missed the year before, but last year was the first year I went to one with Danon, and I was completely impressed by him, the way that he worked the crowd, and just him speaking about the Kansas City Chiefs. He's amazing.
Boom, shakalaka. That's what he likes to say before we talk about the odds on the games.
Nice.
And he is very much in tune to what happens.
Well, he has to be pretty astute to keep up with Mitch Holthus, because the two of those guys together, you can't stump them.
Certainly not Mitch. He does his homework. Mitch, it used to be when he was started out as the Chiefs, and this is, I think, year number 31 for him, if I'm not mistaken, 30 or 31 with the Chiefs. He preceded Kevin Harlan. I'm sorry, succeeded Kevin Harlan. Harlan preceded him. And Mitch has carried over some of Harlan's expressions. But when he started, Mitch was also doing other aspects of broadcasting. He had his own Mitch Holthus broadcasting camp, and I think he may have been still doing Kansas State athletics back then. Now he's all Chiefs, and he does have the Chiefs show. He has everything to do with Kansas City. He's a part of their fabric and does a great job. He's a fine broadcaster.
What questions are you anxious to ask Mitch and Danon this year?
I want to ask them specifically if, in their opinion, they've been around long enough that any of the subsidiary aspects of the Kansas City Chiefs, since the shooting and since some of the other arrests and so forth, what kind of an effect does that have on a team? They would know. Of course, it's all psychological as opposed to physical, but does that have an effect? I'm especially anxious to hear how that shooting affected them.
Yeah, it's been an interesting offseason. We've talked about that quite a bit as we've, been doing our off-season show, because they've had arrests, they've had the whole deal with the wide receiver, they've had just this, that, and the other thing going on. A lot of distractions. That, to me, one of the interesting storylines going into the season will be, how does this team put all that noise aside and focus on doing something that nobody's ever done before.
I'll tell you what I found to be very interesting, too. Here you have two totally separate episodes of the law being broken, the one by the wide receiver, who we all know about, down in Dallas and so forth, and nothing has happened to him from his status with the Chiefs. Then we have the other one with the one-time Alabama defensive player, Isaiah Buggs, who is involved in, number one, an animal abuse, and number two, a domestic abuse. Gone in 2 weeks. Cut him.
Yep.
Now, wait a minute. Don't we do everything equally? And no, you do not. What is your status with the team? And it makes a big difference.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. It is your local live sports talk show. We're talking about the Chiefs. We're talking about our Chiefs Happy Hour, which is coming up on July 22nd. In case you missed it, tickets for that are available online at 1047thecave.com. I was looking over what's going on in the Chiefs world. They let Bugs go. We mentioned that. And then a couple of other side stories here that just happy off-season stories. Travis Kelce on stage with Taylor Swift in London. That's pretty funny. That holiday touchdowns. The Chiefs have partnered with Hallmark on a Christmas movie. My wife's a huge Hallmark Hall of Fame movie fan, so it'd be exciting to see
Joe,
that.
you have to also understand that the guys who write here for the internet and so forth have nothing else to write about.
Yeah, but it's still interesting stories. It's still I'm not going to dedicate 5 minutes to each of these things.
Hell no.
I think what I want to dedicate the rest of our time in this first segment to is the Missouri government has now said that they are working on a plan to aid for the Kansas City stadiums, the hands being forced. What do you know about this?
Well, Governor Parson has said, and he's admitted this publicly, we're not going to let these teams go. And I think what he means from that is that they're going to put up a challenge with the state of Kansas. You have to understand that they both will retain, if this were to happen, I don't think it will, but if it were to happen and the teams were somehow enticed financially to move over to Kansas City, Kansas, they still retain the name Kansas City. And it really isn't that big a change at all. The New York Giants and New York Jets do it. They play in New Jersey, for heaven's sake, right across the Hudson River. But it is the New York City environs. This would be in the Kansas City environs. But it would be Kansas instead of Missouri, and that's where the tax money would be going.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the government doesn't want that at all. They will come up with some kind of a plan. I've said it all along. I think the Chiefs probably stay right where they are. I'm not sure the Royals not only not move to Kansas City, Kansas. I would not be surprised if they move, period, to another city, because they've got a pretty good little ball club now, and yet they are not drawing anywhere near what they should. But again, when you hold that into comparison, baseball is a long, long season, 162 games, and your attendance figures vary during that time. So you can't really base it on one particular instance. However, the Royals are not the Chiefs in terms of popularity, and there's no question about that. So I do think there's a vast difference between the two of them in terms of where they end up.
What do you think, Josh?
Well, I hope they stay in Missouri. Thinking about that where they are right now in Independence, that I feel like they could improve the stadiums right there. I don't feel like they need to move them anywhere. I don't think they need to move them downtown like they've talked about, because that was the first initiative that got shot down. I don't know. I mean, it's all like Ned said. There's still going to be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals. So it comes down to just politicians arguing over tax money at that point.
That's what it is.
So I hope they stay in Missouri, but even if they move over to Kansas, they're still the same teams. And
well, the revenue, if you're a Missourian, you want those dollars coming in here. I mean, you want those to be here and you want that revenue for the city of Kansas City. I don't know. I can't imagine what the loss would be to the city of Kansas City.
I think probably fairly significant.
Yeah. And what I'm seeing, the Chiefs don't want a new stadium. They want to make improvements to the stadium that they have.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll say this, and we talk about this a lot on the show, that I'm a Yankees fan. The magic is not in the new stadium. It's not the same as old Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
It's more money. You can make more money because you've got more of those booths that they want, more of the suites and that kind of amenities that people expect in stadiums. but there's certain places that have magic, and I'll tell you right now, Arrowhead Stadium's one of those places that has magic. So
it's not their original stadium. Municipal Stadium on Brooklyn Street, Brooklyn Avenue, was their original stadium. That's where the A's and the Royals in their first years played, and where the Chiefs played. Remember, they had to bring in the stands and put them along the sidelines and cover up much of right field. But what you're saying is quite accurate, because a lot of the success they've had in recent years, and prior to this, the Super Bowl year, that was accomplished at Arrowhead. So it does resonate very much with the public. Now, you mentioned the flavor of stadiums, and it is very, very important, especially with the iconic ones. Fenway Park, Wrigley Field, and Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles, which I think is the third oldest now of all the stadiums. It's 1960, I think 61, somewhere around there when they opened it up. In that, and that in and of itself has a great attraction to what individuals are looking for. You go to those ballparks and you're looking at history. Now, many other ballparks, I wish, in a sense, that the Cardinals still had Old Sportsman's Park, because that had a lot of flavor to it.
Yeah.
My old stadium with the Phillies when I was a kid growing up, Connie Mack Stadium, a lot of flavor. Place is falling down, but come on, you're still in one of the historic venues. However, time goes on and changes must take place.
I was at a store this weekend and I picked up a book, and I was looking through it. It was a book about the great American baseball parks, the old ones. And one of the stadiums, which is one I don't think gets a lot of talk about, was the Tiger Stadium in Detroit. Mm-hmm. Their new stadium is beautiful, but there's something about you could hit a home run in that ballpark and really not actually hit it out of the park, because the upper deck hung out over the field. So if the upper deck wasn't there, it would be a fly out to the warning track. But because the upper deck's there, it's the upper deck.
That's funny.
And it was such a tiny ballpark,
too. The same thing happened at the old, now in demise, the old Polo Grounds in New York City, which was built not for baseball, but for polo and football. It was a big U shape. So when they put I love this too. We as kids, this used to be, oh God, when the Phillies would play there, or whenever they'd have some kind of a game where you had witnessed the Giants playing. It's also the Yankees' first stadium too. Down the left field line was 252 feet. I think that's Little League distance, guys.
Yeah.
Down the right field line was 258 feet. Dead center, 490 feet.
Oh my God!
And that's where Willie Mays made the great catch on Vic Wertz. That was a home run. A home run in any other ballpark in the world. That's a home run, and Willie Mays caught it. That was how unique that was. There was some speculation by us old baseball pundits who like to think of ourselves as that if Willie Mays had played his entire career, which he did not, but his entire career at the Polo Grounds, he may have had over 800 home runs.
Wow. Yeah. You know, there's a couple of softball fields here, Westport North and South, and one of the Westports is really small, and the other one there's no way you can hit it out of. It's got a big hump in the middle of the outfield that just rolls downhill. So if you hit that, the fence is probably 550, I want to say, out there.
Oh my gosh!
So you're only inside the park home runs there. And treasures like that, even right here in Springfield, Missouri. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about baseball. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
We're talking old guys stuff today. Sorry, Josh, you're not quite an old guy like us.
I feel like it, though. It's all good.
Yeah. So, Ned, you're going to relate to us about Wrigley Field and the lights What about it?
It's such a historic venue. Number one, it's been around for so long. And Josh brought up the ivy-covered walls. They weren't the only one. Forbes Field in Pittsburgh used to also have the ivy-covered walls, but it was started at Wrigley, and it was started by Bill Veck's dad, who was also a big promoter, as his son Bill Veck was. So, they had the ivy. I thought that was unique to have ivy-covered walls. Really great. But I think the more unique aspect of it was the fact that until 1988, they played all day games, all the home games. There were no lights. There were no lights at Wrigley Field. But then the pressure got to them, and Major League Baseball, in all their infinite wisdom, threw tradition to the side and said, if you guys ever want to have an all-star game here or have a postseason event here, you're going to have to put in lights. Well, the ownership bowed. I don't think it was Phil Wrigley. I think it was somebody else. I'm not sure. But whatever it was, they bowed to him and said, okay, we'll spend the money and put in lights. And in 1988, they did that. Well, when Mr. Wrigley, the chewing gum family, owned the team, his intention was not to play all-day games. His intention was to put lights in whenever necessary. Cincinnati Reds did it. Brooklyn Dodgers did it. New York Yankees put lights in. And he had plans for the Cubs to put lights in 1941. 1941 was also the start of World War II. Yeah. And the hue and cry, hey, we need materials, we need the metal. He scrapped his plans to put in lights, and then after the war was over, he said, hey, why not just continue with day games? They're perfectly all right. And it was so iconic. It was also, as a matter of fact, if you go back into history, in the late 1960s, the Cubs had Ernie Banks and sweet swinging Billy Williams and Fergie Jenkins and some very, very good teams. Challengers for a playoff spot. And the fans are turning out to Wrigley Field in droves. And then in early and mid-August of '69, the team collapsed. Couldn't get a win no matter what they did. And one of the speculations was it's because they're playing all-day games. Their body rhythm is out of context. Leo DeRochers, he was their manager then, said the very same thing. He said, hey, their body is all out of whack. They can't react to this. Have to go on the road and play night games and come back here and play day? Well, all right. Whether or not that was ever proven, I don't know, because the Cubs historically didn't have great teams. They also historically did not draw very well. Remember the day that Stan Musial got his 3,000th base hit? 5,000 fans in the stands that day. That's the way it was. It's only in really the by recent, I'm talking about the last 25 or 30 years, that a ticket to Wrigley Field is hard to get. Anyway, fans do support it, and now they do have lights, and it is still one of the most iconic baseball venues, sports venues for that matter. Chicago Bears used to play there. That was their home field.
Oh, that's cool.
It has a great history to it.
Ferris Bueller was there.
I'm sorry?
Ferris Bueller.
Ferris Bueller, yeah.
Ferris Bueller was there. I mean, so many great balls getting lost in the ivy. I mean, just the kind of little things that happen with ballparks that even though there was a time in the late 60s, early 70s, and you probably were, around. I know you were around talking about
I was at KY3
then. The cookie cutter ballpark became in fashion. We had one in St. Louis. We had Busch Stadium, and then the Three Rivers Stadium and the one in Philadelphia.
Veterans Stadium.
Yep, they're basically the same kind of design and built stadium. There's nothing really unique about them. They just
they were built, Joe, was to save money because you can have football and baseball in the same venue. You didn't have to build a separate stadium for one over the other. Did it lend itself to really good baseball? I don't think it did. Montreal had the same thing. The Expos started their career in the late 60s at Jarry Park. That was a city park, and they brought in bleachers. 29,000 was their top crowd that you can get in, and they were only planning on being there for 3 or 4 years. Well, the main stadium that they were going to build got delayed, and government interference and all this sort of thing. So when they had the Olympics there in 1976, after the Olympics were over, that's where the Expos moved to, Olympic Stadium, which was the ultimate in your cookie-cutter stadiums. That's what it looked like. It was really, oh gosh, you could hear the PA announcer echoing, and it really was not an intimate ballpark at all.
First baseball game I went to see was at Busch Stadium, And at that time, they really had let the stadium go.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't put hardly any money to it at all and into it at all. I would say it was probably 82, 81. It was the year they played the Braves in the playoffs.
This would have been a playoff game.
A playoff game, and the carpet, because it was the AstroTurf, was so worn it was white in places. And so when the ball would go across the field, you couldn't see it sitting in the stands because you couldn't see it. And it's amazing to me that there was a time there when the ballparks got kind of cookie cutter, and also they didn't care for them that much. They just made money off of them.
That's all they did, and that was the reason for them, because it allowed them to save, or it allowed all the franchises to save on money. And I thought that was a reprehensible look at sports back to those days, because I didn't like them at all.
Have you ever been to Wrigley Field?
Wrigley? Oh, yeah, gosh, yeah. I remember I spent a couple of years in the Navy there, and that was a Liberty port.
And Josh, you've been there, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, I've been there I've been to 4 games at Wrigley. I love that ballpark. It's one of my favorites of all time, not just because I'm a Cubs fan, but because it is such an intimate ballpark.
It's right in the neighborhood.
I mean, when you walk in, it's in a neighborhood. When you walk in, you're literally standing at home plate. And, I mean, if there wasn't a screen there, you could reach out and slap the catcher. You know, I mean, we sat in the left field bleachers, and the left fielder was playing catch with a kid in the stands. You know, I mean, it's a really small, cool ballpark.
And how about a ballpark where you can sit in there and see the freebies, the cheapskates, sitting on top of apartments with bleachers up there? That is so cool.
What's your favorite ballpark you've ever been to, Ned?
Oh, I think probably, in all honesty, I'm a Philadelphia native. It would have to be Old Connie Mack Stadium, because I saw so many games there. And it finally went to the wrecking ball in '69 when they built the Veterans Stadium there, the cookie cutter. But that's where I saw so many games, so it would be my favorite.
What about you, Josh?
Mine is Wrigley, but I'll tell you, a close second for me was the ballpark at Arlington.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That, not the current one, but the one before this one.
See,
there's like a middle ballpark that didn't last very long for them, and it was the picture perfect old school style ballpark. And then they tore it down and built another one. But that's my second. And then Fenway Park. I'll never be a Red Sox fan, but Fenway Park is an awesome place.
Where'd you sit at Fenway Park?
We sat on the opposite. We sat in the right field side. So
Pesky's Pole area?
Yeah. So I could see the green monster. The only problem with where we were sitting is there was obscured views because of the way it was built with all the big girders and everything.
What's Ob's view on my ticket mean? What does that mean?
Yeah. What does that mean?
It means you're standing and you see what your eyes will allow you to see.
You got to lean a lot.
Yeah, during the course of the game.
What about you?
Honestly, I haven't been to that many ballparks. I went to the stadium you're talking about, Arlington, and it was a cool ballpark. Getting in and out of there was a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
because you had to park like a mile away and walk, and there was a 2-lane road in and out of the stadium.
Right.
I mean, it was not built to get in and out of that stadium. So, I mean, I understand. I don't understand city planning sometimes and how something like that could happen. I've not been to the new Busch Stadium. I would like to go. I've been to the old Busch Stadium several times.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to Royal Stadium. I do love going to Royal Stadium. One of the reasons why I like going there was it was purpose built for baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And having seen so many games at Busch Stadium, it was nice to go to a ballpark that was built just for baseball. Because baseball's more. Look, I don't want to knock other sports or anything like that, but baseball's more intimate. I think that's part of the draw for basketball and hockey too. Is you're kind of like right there, and football, the fans are really further away.
It's very true.
And so you kind of have to keep your head in the game because of foul balls and things like that. So I've always really enjoyed going to Kauffman Stadium. Always really like going there. So I hope someday to go to Yankee Stadium. I'd like to go to Fenway. I'd like to see a game there. But,
We'll see what happens.
Well, no, we'll see. Probably not. But
let's talk a little bit about what the teams are doing right now.
Yeah, we'll come back and we'll talk about that. baseball and Ned Talk. We'll end our old guy talk, so stick around. We'll talk about current baseball.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
You know, I love the National League Central. I love looking at the standings because the only thing that's really static about that division is Milwaukee's on top. I think last week we were here and the Cardinals were back in last place. They're in second place now.
Yeah.
They've catapulted over the other three teams.
Nobody's out of it.
No.
The Cubs are in last place, and they're 10.5 games back. But, hey, considering the nature of baseball, that's hardly out of it. Any of those teams can win that thing. It's really an amazing race.
And the Cardinals are over 500, 42-40 right now. They're playing good baseball, 6-4 over the last 10 games. They lost yesterday. Run differential, not great. What do you think about the Cardinals? I mean, you've said all along they're a 500 ball team.
I think that's where they are, in all honesty. 42-40 right now. With the, I really felt like, Joe, and it still may come to pass, that this current series of games that they have was one in which they could make up a lot of ground, and they haven't. I thought they'd sweep the Cincinnati Reds. They're not going to. The best they can do is split. If the Cardinals are able to win today, go to Pittsburgh to play the Pirates during the 4th of July weekend, starting on Tuesday. And the Pirates are no pushover. Then they being the Cardinals, have the Washington Nationals in Washington after that, and they aren't very good. So this is really another great opportunity for them to build onto that schedule, but they have to solve their pitching problems. Sonny Gray pitched, was it yesterday that he was on the hill? Yes. And he got bounced out of there pretty good. It wasn't either. It was Friday.
No, it was Sonny Gray yesterday.
It was yesterday, yeah. And he was hit pretty hard, and he's their ace. Now today they have Lance Lynn going for them, and Lance Lynn he's a much of a roller coaster pitcher as he was when he was down here with the Springfield Cardinals, up and down. He is 37 years old, and I'm not making fun of the guy, but he looks like, your prototypical softball player out there playing Major League Baseball, and he's a pitcher, for heaven's sake.
Is he throwing underhand?
No, not doing that. But and he can throw. He still can muster a lot of velocity on that ball. But needless to say, he only goes about 5 or 6 innings, somewhere around there. And the Cardinals just have to get a whole lot better. There has been some trickle-down effect now. They got Gordon Graceffo up from Memphis on Friday. Sent him down yesterday. So one day he got to pitch in the major leagues. Now they've got a new guy coming up, Jacob Basiovic, I think is how he pronounces his name, Ohio State kid, who they're promoting from Memphis, and he's pretty good. And the trickle-down effect is here because the Springfield Cardinals have called up a pitcher to replace individuals on their roster. That's how it works in the minor leagues. And the pitcher they called up is Quinn Matthews, who is Stanford University and 6-2 in Peoria. So he makes his debut tonight, as a matter of fact.
Wow. And you were saying last week, and we didn't talk about this on the air, that Springfield Cardinals were in on the winning the first half.
They won the first half.
Well, yeah, congratulations.
They won it by a half a game. They won it because the Arkansas Travelers absolutely fell apart in the final 4 games. All Arkansas had to do was win 1 game. 1 out of 4, and they couldn't get that done. And Springfield said, thank you very much. We'll just take advantage of that. And they won the first division, which puts them into the playoffs. Nice. Now, the playoffs are only 3 games in minor league baseball. It's the way they have it engineered. So, yeah, it's extra baseball. But now to start the second half, the Springfield Cardinals are 1-4, and they're playing the Travelers. That'll be their game tonight. They've got to break out of this streak because they are a better team than that. But, again, these are guys who know fully well what's at stake, and what's at stake is maybe a trip up to St. Louis somewhere along the line.
Are you doing the game tonight?
Yes.
All right, with your good buddy Scott Bales?
Scott Bales will be on at 6 o'clock, yeah.
All right, fabulous. So tune in and watch Ned tonight, or listen to Ned talk tonight. Okay. So what I'm seeing is the weather's getting hotter and the batters are getting hotter too, from what I can tell, because it's had really good pitching up until about 2 weeks ago, and then since then it's just absolutely fallen apart. Is that what you're seeing around the league?
I think so. I think the warmer it gets, the more the batters loosen up a bit. I was kind of thought that would happen to the Cardinals, but when you look at the numbers, and the Cardinals are now into the second, from a mathematics standpoint, the second half of the season. I think today is number 82 or 83 for them. Nolan Arenado with 7 home runs. What is this? He should have about 17, 18, 20, somewhere around there. Aaron Judge has what, 30? 31?
30. Yep.
That's 30, and he's on the track to hit 60 or more. But look at the difference. And here you have Goldschmidt, who is still struggling with the St. Louis Cardinals, hitting a little bit better, but still not where Paul Goldschmidt should be. Are these factors that come into play? And I have to think the answer is yes, they are, when the trade deadline comes up at the end of this month. So during these next several weeks, a lot of these teams have key decisions that need to be made.
What's your gut telling you? Cardinals buyers, sellers, or are they just going to, last year they just stood pat?
In the history tells you they stay pat. But I have to think that they're, 6.5 out of first place right now. They want the playoffs. That franchise needs for the team to be in the playoffs. The crowds have fallen off a little bit. They need to get well, and get well in a hurry. I think that depending on where they are when the final week in July comes up, depending on where they are, I think they might be buyers. But if they aren't in contention and the front office makes that decision, then I think you'll see a chance for a wholesale, I hate to say disruption of the team, but that's what it would be. I think some big names would go.
Do you think they'll dismantle that pitching staff, kind of trade those older guys away to maybe see teams that are in contention,
yes,
looking for somebody that can eat innings?
A Lance Lynn, a Sonny Gray. I can see that. They're only on 1-year contracts.
Yeah. Most consistent team up to this point all season long, and I hate to say this, the Dodgers. I mean, they're playing. They just steadily play good baseball. They're 7-3 over the last 10 games, and the Padres, who have been red hot, 9-1. They, just have not gained much ground. They're still 7.5 back in the National League West.
And who is their manager? Mr. Mike Schilt.
Yep. They're playing really good baseball right now. The Seattle Mariners quietly doing it over in the American League West. Guardians still on top in the American League Central. The Royals, they'd fallen off the pace a little bit last week. I think Minnesota's still possibly the team to beat in that division, but they're 7 games back from the Guardians, who just keep playing good baseball.
Now, how far are the Royals back?
They're 8 games back.
Yeah, so Kansas City, and we've talked about this on the show practically every week. Kansas City's good. They're a very good baseball team. They're just good enough to be a big pain in the backside down the stretch. I don't think they're contenders. I don't think they're mature enough to be contenders. I do think they'll be there next year and the years after that, but not quite yet. However, we'll see. 8 games is certainly not insurmountable by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I mean, you look at what's happened to my Yankees, who were securely in first place, and they've fallen off. They're now in second place. They dropped behind Baltimore, 1 game back.
But Josh and Joe, the both of you will know this too. Every team, soccer, baseball, whatever, goes through peaks and valleys.
Oh, especially when you have that many games to play. You're going to have stretches where you're unbeatable and stretches where people scratch their head and say, what happened to that unbeatable team?
The thing that scares me about this stretch for the Yankees is this is exactly what I saw last year. They were a very good baseball team last year, and then they got to a certain point, and for some reason they could not find a way to win. And right now they're right there. They're not finding ways to win.
Do you think age is a factor for the Yankees?
They're not that old of a team, but they are seeing injuries, and I think that lineup is so deadly. But when you take one guy out of it, it starts to get a little average.
Mm-hmm.
And
you know what it is, Joe?
What?
Climate change. Everything in the world is blamed on climate change, so why not blame the Yankee slump on climate change, too?
Ned Reynolds, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just not going to touch that, Ned.
Leave it alone, guys.
I'm just going to leave that
alone.
sitting right there for you. If you want to write letters, make sure you address them to
Ned Reynolds.
And either wholeheartedly agree with them, Corbin, or just completely disagree with them. Whatever you feel like, but just make sure they're addressed to Ned. I don't want to see them. We come back, we'll tell you what we're going to do this afternoon. It is Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Just a reminder to all you ladies, you single ladies, that might be looking for an older gentleman in your life. He will be at the...
Where are you going with this?
You're going to be at the
Come
parade.
on.
You're going to be at the parade in Marshfield
well.
on 4th of July, so...
That's assuming I can get through the thing. It's
Yeah.
about a 2-mile walk, and I've got the infirm. How can I turn? I'm not infirmed, but I've got all the problems that old people do.
Ned's day-to-day. That's what he's
listed as day-to-day.
He's listed as day-to-day.
But you can bet he'll be out
But if
there.
you're looking for a nice older gentleman to hang around with, Ned Reynolds.
That's all it would be, too, ladies.
Is that because of global warming too, Ned?
It is.
Oh,
It has
man.
everything to do with it.
All right, I thought so. So do you have chores on tap for today?
Well, yes and no. The regular Sunday chores have been done because I only have about 45 minutes and have to get down to the ballpark because we do have a telecast tonight. It takes a while to put those things together.
No, you really don't just go up there and fly by the seat of your pants like we do here?
No, I wish it was like that. That'd be a lot of fun.
What about you, Josh? What are you going to do this afternoon?
Oh, I don't know. I've got to do some laundry and then...
Oh, come on. Listen.
I know.
People are supposed to live vicariously through us. We're
Us?
talking about laundry.
They're supposed to live vicariously
Laundry?
through us.
You're talking about laundry?
Okay, I'm going to run a marathon while drinking a fifth of Jack Daniels. Come on, people, let's go.
That I want to see.
So laundry and what else?
I'm going to do some writing.
Yeah, that's right. Our own Josh Roberts is a writer.
Trying to be.
What are you
Well, no,
doing?
you're published.
Fiction. Yeah, I've been published a couple times. It's all fiction, Ned. It's all fake.
There is no history involved with anything like
Not in
this.
anything I've written so far.
Come on, Josh. You're a school teacher. You
I
can
want
get that.
to write the 100 greatest hockey players of all time. I want to write a book about that, but I haven't yet.
Wayne Gretzky.
Gretzky, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe.
And then after that, it's going to be a real stretch. Filler for the next
Well,
100
you
pages.
could probably say Mario Lemieux's number 4, but then maybe Ovechkin is number 5 at
How
this
about
point.
Bobby Clark?
Bobby Clark's in the top 10, I would bet.
What about the Hanson brothers?
Oh, man. I'd want to put them in there. I want them in there.
And the Golden Jet, the Jet and the Golden Jet, Bobby Hull and Brett Hull?
I'd put Bobby Hull above Brett Hull. Brett Hull was great, but Bobby Hull was spectacular.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, yes.
Let's talk about hockey, Joe.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a NHL Stanley Cup champion, and Ned was props to Ned. He was right last week.
Yeah.
he picked Florida, and
Lucky
everybody
guess. Lucky
else
guess.
picked.
Well, I truly
Picked
think,
against.
I think the Oilers ran out of gas. I think that Game 7, they were tired. They put all their effort into getting there, and then they couldn't quite finish it.
Know that feeling. That's kind of the story of my life these days. Yeah, just getting there is even the thought of getting there sometimes just wipes me out. So anyway.
Okay.
But if you would like to listen to Ned Talk as a podcast, if you thought, wow, these guys said something really intelligent that I need to follow up on, you can download that at our website at 1047thecave.com, wherever you get your podcast at, or just search out the word Ned Talk and you should be able to find us. Ned, enjoy your 4th of July.
You are so very nice to say that. I hope you guys do too, and we'll see you. We're here next Sunday.
We will be here next Sunday at noon, and we will do a show again where we will probably talk about a whole lot of nothing for an hour. But you know what? I wouldn't miss it. I
But
enjoy
isn't it fun to do that?
It is
Oh, it's a
fun.
great
It's fun to
time.
sit around and talk
Always
about
fun.
it. Hopefully people enjoy listening to it. We hope. Anyway, I want to say thanks to Brian Tyndall, Mike the Intern, Corbin Campbell, Nick Fury. We'll see you guys next Sunday. It's Ned Talk.